The discovery in the deep. The mariner's hope drifted through the rolling Pacific waves, a solitary vessel on an endless ocean. Captain Alina Reyes stood on the bridge, her weathered hands gripping the railing as she surveyed the horizon with weary eyes. 23 days at sea, and their nets remained frustratingly empty. The ship's hold should have been filled with tuna by now, but instead it echoed with emptiness, much like their bank accounts. "Fuel's running low, Captain," said Daichi Tanaka, the ship's engineer and Alina's oldest friend. His voice carried the weight of their shared concern. At 52, Daichi had spent more time on the water than land, his expertise keeping the aging vessel functioning despite years of minimal maintenance. "How much longer can we stay out?" Alina asked, though she already knew the answer. 3 days, maybe 4 if we ration." Daichi wiped his perpetually oil-stained hands on a rag. "After that, we'll barely make it back to port." Alina nodded, her gaze still fixed on the distant horizon. The mariner's hope had been her father's boat before her, and she had promised herself it wouldn't be lost under her command. But the changing ocean currents, stricter fishing regulations, and ever-increasing competition from corporate trawlers had pushed independent operators like her to the edge of bankruptcy. "Captain, you should see this." The voice came through the ship's intercom, belonging to Zhou Chen, their sonar operator and marine biologist. Alina had exchanged a quick glance with Daichi before heading below deck. The monitor room was cramped but efficient, dominated by screens and equipment. Zhou sat hunched over the main display, her fingers dancing across the controls. At 29, she was the youngest senior crew member, having joined them after her research funding was cut. "What am I looking at?" Alina asked, leaning over Zhou's shoulder. "Something big," Zhou replied, adjusting the settings. "Too large to be a whale or a submarine. It's sitting at about 2,800 meters down." Alina frowned, studying the shape on the screen. "A shipwreck." "No ordinary ship looks like that," Zhou said, pointing to the unusual configuration. "And look at these energy readings. Whatever it is, it's generating power. Faint, but definitely there." Marcus Lewis, the newest crew member, squeezed into the room. Fresh out of the Navy at 32, he'd brought valuable technical expertise to their operation. "Could be some classified military tech," he suggested. "Governments are always testing weird stuff in deep water." "If it's military, it's like nothing I've ever seen," Marcus replied, his eyes narrowing at the display. "And I had top-level clearance." Alina considered their options. The rational choice was to report the finding and continue their fishing operation elsewhere. But something about the mysterious object called to her. Perhaps it was desperation, or perhaps intuition, but she felt certain this discovery could change everything. "Zhou, keep monitoring those signals." "Daichi, can we modify the deep-sea camera to reach that depth?" Daichi scratched his chin thoughtfully. "We'd need to reinforce the cable. Add more lights. It'll burn fuel we can't spare." "And if there's something valuable down there?" Alina asked. A moment of silence passed between them, the unspoken understanding that this might be their last chance to save the mariner's hope. "I'll need a few hours," Daichi finally said. "Marcus, I could use your help." While Daichi and Marcus worked on modifying their equipment, Alina studied the shipping charts for the area. They were in international waters, far from the usual shipping lanes. Whatever lay below them had likely been undisturbed for a very long time. By nightfall, the camera was ready. The 4 of them gathered around the monitor as the device began its long descent into the abyss. Darkness enveloped the camera, broken only by the artificial lights they'd attached. The pressure at such depths was enormous, threatening to crush their equipment at any moment. 2,500 meters, Zhou announced, tracking the descent. Approaching the target. The minutes stretched into an hour as the camera continued its journey downward. No one spoke, the only sound the gentle hum of the ship's systems and the distant crash of waves against the hull. "There." Marcus pointed at the screen as something reflected their lights. What is that? As the camera descended further, more of the object came into view. It was massive, at least the size of a naval destroyer, but with a design unlike anything they'd ever seen. The hull, if that's what it was, featured smooth, flowing lines that seemed to defy conventional naval architecture. Patterns etched into its surface glowed with a faint, pulsing blue light. "That's not human technology," Zoe whispered, her scientific skepticism giving way to awe. Elena felt her heartbeat quicken. "Move the camera around. Let's see more." They maneuvered the camera around the object, revealing more details. Part of the vessel appeared trapped under an underwater landslide, massive rocks and sediment pinning it to the seafloor. "Look at the material," Daichi said, his engineering mind analyzing what he saw. No signs of corrosion despite the depth and what must be tremendous pressure. No human-made alloy could withstand that. "Are we really saying what I think we're saying?" Marcus asked, voicing the thought they all shared. Elena took a deep breath before stating the obvious. "It's not from Earth." The realization hung in the air, momentous and terrifying. They'd expected to find fish, maybe a shipwreck if they were lucky. Instead, they'd discovered something that would rewrite humanity's understanding of the universe. "What do we do now?" Zoe asked. "Call it in." Before Elena could answer, something changed on the screen. A new light flickered to life on the alien vessel, then another. It wasn't random. It was responding to their presence. "I think they know we're here," Marcus said softly. Elena made a decision. "Let's try to communicate. Zoe, can you signal with the camera lights?" Zoe nodded, taking control of the camera. She flashed the lights in a simple pattern. 3 short bursts, repeated. For several tense moments, nothing happened. Then, the lights on the alien vessel pulsed in the same pattern. "They're responding," Zoe exclaimed. Over the next several hours, they developed a rudimentary communication system using light patterns. It was painfully slow, but effective. They learned that the vessel was called the Stellar Voyager, crewed by beings who called themselves the Araxians. Their ship had been damaged in a space battle and had crashed into Earth's ocean centuries ago, becoming trapped when the underwater terrain shifted during a seismic event. Most of the crew had entered a form of stasis to survive, but their power reserves were finally running low. Without help, the Araxians would die within days. "They're asking if we can help free them," Zoe translated from the light signals. Elena looked at her crew, seeing the same determination in their eyes that she felt. They were just humble fishermen, facing an impossible situation with nothing but their wits and a struggling fishing vessel. The logical choice would be to contact authorities and let governments handle this discovery. But the Araxians didn't have time for bureaucracy and international squabbles. And something told Elena that if governments got involved, the aliens might become subjects for study rather than people who needed help. "Tell them we'll try," Elena said firmly. "Daichi, I need ideas. How can a fishing boat free a spaceship trapped under thousands of tons of rock?" Daichi rubbed his chin, his mind already working through possibilities. "We can't move the rocks directly, but maybe we don't have to. The ocean can do the work for us." "What do you mean?" Marcus asked. "Pressure differentials," Daichi explained, his eyes lighting up. "We use our nets and buoys to create controlled current patterns around the ship. With the right configuration, we might be able to shift enough sediment to give them the space they need to use whatever propulsion they have left." It was a desperate plan with a slim chance of success, but it was all they had. "Let's do it," Elena decided. "Zoe, explain our plan to them. Ask if they can help coordinate from their end." As Zoe communicated with the Araxians, Elena stepped outside onto the deck. The night sky stretched above her, stars twinkling in the darkness. Somewhere up there was the Araxians' home, unimaginably distant. And here they were, trapped at the bottom of Earth's ocean, relying on the ingenuity of a few human fishermen for their survival. Elena had always believed the ocean held many secrets, but never in her wildest dreams had she imagined a discovery like this. They were about to attempt something unprecedented, a rescue operation for beings from another world. "We're going to need more coffee," she murmured to herself, gazing up at the stars. "It's going to be a very long night." Back inside, the crew of the Mariner's Hope began preparing for the most important fishing operation of their lives. Their quarry wasn't tuna or swordfish, but something far more valuable: the lives of beings who had traveled across the stars, only to find themselves trapped in the depths of an alien ocean, waiting for salvation. The impossible rescue. Dawn broke over the Pacific as the crew of the Mariner's Hope worked tirelessly on their improvised rescue operation. Sleep had become a distant memory, replaced by adrenaline, and the singular focus of their unprecedented task. "Buoy network is deployed," Marcus reported, wiping sweat from his brow despite the morning chill. They had modified their fishing equipment throughout the night, creating a complex system of weighted buoys that could operate at extreme depths. Daichi hunched over hand-drawn diagrams spread across the galley table, making final calculations. "If we position everything correctly, we should create enough turbulence to displace the sediment," he explained, though exhaustion slurred his words slightly. "The submarine landslide trapped them, but we might use the same principle in reverse to free them." Elena nodded, pouring another cup of coffee from a pot that had been continuously brewing since their discovery. Her eyes burned from fatigue, but there was no time for rest. "Zoe, what's their status?" Zoe hadn't left the monitor room in hours, maintaining their light-based communication with the Araxians. "Their power reserves are at 12% and dropping. They estimate 36 hours before critical systems fail." The weight of responsibility pressed down on Elena's shoulders. They were the Araxians' only hope, a reality that seemed absurd given their circumstances. A struggling fishing vessel with minimal equipment attempting to rescue an advanced alien spacecraft from the ocean floor. It sounded like the plot of a bad science fiction movie. "Let's begin," she decided. "Marcus, deploy the first wave of buoys according to Daichi's calculations." For the next several hours, they worked in perfect coordination. Marcus controlled the deployment system they'd constructed from the ship's crane and winch mechanisms. Daichi monitored the pressure readings from their improvised sensors. Zoe maintained constant communication with the Araxians, relaying crucial data about the shifting conditions around their vessel. By midday, the first signs of progress appeared on their sonar. "The sediment is moving," Zoe called out, excitement breaking through her professional demeanor. The Araxians confirmed they're detecting decreased pressure on their starboard side. Elena allowed herself a brief moment of hope. "Keep going. We need to create enough space for them to engage their propulsion systems." The work continued into the afternoon, a delicate dance of adjusting buoy positions and monitoring the resulting currents. Their fuel gauge dropped steadily, a constant reminder of their own precarious situation. If this operation failed, they might not have enough fuel to return to port. Then disaster struck. One of the main cables snapped under pressure, sending a critical buoy array tumbling into the abyss. "We've lost the northwest quadrant," Marcus reported grimly. "The whole pressure differential will collapse without it." Daichi slammed his fist against the railing. "We don't have replacement cables strong enough for that depth." Silence fell over the crew as the implications sank in. They had come so close, only to be thwarted by equipment limitations. Zoe emerged from the monitor room, her expression grim. "The Araxians are asking what happened." They detected the change immediately. Elena stared out at the ocean, her mind racing. They needed a solution, something they hadn't considered yet. Then it came to her. A dangerous idea, but perhaps their only option. "We have one more cable," she said slowly. "Our tow cable." Daichi's eyes widened. "Elena, that's our emergency backup. If we lose that—" "I know," she interrupted. "But what choice do we have?" The decision made, they quickly repurposed their emergency tow cable, reinforcing it with every spare length of rope and wire they could find on the vessel. It was a patchwork solution, but it might be enough to restore the pressure differential they needed. As the sun began to set, casting long orange rays across the water, They redeployed the buoy array. This time, everyone held their breath as the system descended into the depths. If this cable failed too, they would have nothing left to try. "It's holding," Marcus reported after an agonizing wait, re-establishing the pressure differential now. Through the night and into the second day, they maintained their efforts, making continuous adjustments as the underwater currents shifted. Their own supplies dwindled. Fuel, food, fresh water, all sacrificed to maintain their position above the alien vessel. At dawn on the third day, Zoe burst onto the deck. "They're moving. The Araxians have engaged emergency thrusters." Everyone rushed to the sonar display. The massive object that had been stationary for so long was indeed rising, slowly but steadily ascending from its ancient prison. "They're asking us to move back," Zoe translated frantically. "They don't want to damage our vessel when they surface." Elena immediately ordered the Mariner's Hope to a safe distance. As they pulled away, she couldn't help but wonder what would happen next. What would these beings look like? Would they be grateful or hostile? How would the world react to irrefutable proof of intelligent extraterrestrial life? There, Marcus pointed to a disturbance in the water about half a kilometer away. The ocean began to churn, waves forming in expanding circles from a central point. Then, with surprising grace for something so massive, the stellar Voyager broke the surface. Water cascaded off its hull, revealing a vessel that defied human engineering principles. It was beautiful in an alien way, all flowing lines and seamless surfaces that seemed to absorb and reflect light simultaneously. The blue patterns they had seen in the depths now pulsed more vibrantly in the sunlight. "It's magnificent," Zoe whispered, her scientific mind struggling to comprehend what she was seeing. "Incoming transmission," Marcus called out suddenly. "They're broadcasting on multiple radio frequencies." "Put it through," Elena ordered. A voice unlike any they had ever heard filled the bridge, musical and resonant, speaking perfect English despite a quality that marked it as decidedly non-human. "Crew of the Mariner's Hope, we are forever in your debt. I am Commander Ilara of the Araxian Stellar Voyager. Thanks to your ingenuity and courage, we live once more." Elena found her voice. "Commander Ilara, this is Captain Elena Reyes. We're glad we could help. We would like to meet our saviors face to face, if you are willing," the alien commander continued. "We pose no threat to you or your world." Elena looked at her crew, seeing her own mix of trepidation and excitement reflected in their eyes. After a moment, she responded, "We would be honored, Commander." Within minutes, a smaller craft detached from the Stellar Voyager and approached the Mariner's Hope. It hovered above their deck before settling gently onto the surface, its design suggesting it could travel equally well in water, air, or vacuum. A section of its hull reconfigured itself, forming an opening. And then, for the first time in human history, members of another intelligent species stepped onto an Earth vessel. The Araxians stood nearly 7 feet tall, their bodies slender but powerful. Their skin shimmered with an opalescent quality, shifting colors like the inside of a seashell. They had no hair, but intricate patterns adorned their elongated heads. Their eyes were the most striking feature, large, with vertical pupils and irises that seemed to contain swirling galaxies. Commander Ilara stepped forward, placing her four-fingered hand over her chest in what appeared to be a gesture of respect. "Captain Reyes, words cannot express our gratitude." Before Elena could respond, Marcus's voice cut through the moment. "Captain, we got company." On the horizon, military vessels approached rapidly, American, Chinese, and Russian ships converging on their position. Helicopters appeared in the distance, and the radio crackled with urgent demands for identification and explanation. "Your world's authorities have detected our emergence," Commander Ilara noted calmly. This was inevitable. Elena felt a surge of protectiveness. "What will you do?" Ilara turned her galaxy-filled eyes toward the approaching vessels. "We will speak with them, but we will do so with you by our side. You have earned the right to represent your species in this historic moment." As the military ships drew closer, Elena realized their simple fishing expedition had transformed into something that would change human history forever. The Mariner's Hope, a struggling vessel with a crew just trying to make ends meet, had become the site of humanity's first formal contact with extraterrestrial intelligence. "I hope they're ready for this," Daichi muttered, watching the approaching armada. "They better be," Elena replied, squaring her shoulders. "Because ready or not, everything changes today." Within hours, the quiet patch of Pacific Ocean had become the center of global attention. Military vessels formed a perimeter around the Mariner's Hope and the stellar Voyager, while officials from various world powers arrived via helicopter. News of the contact had leaked almost immediately, sending shockwaves through human civilization. Satellite images of the alien vessel appeared on every news channel worldwide, while social media exploded with reactions ranging from ecstatic welcome to paranoid fear. Through it all, Elena and her crew remained aboard their humble fishing vessel, now improbably serving as the neutral ground for humanity's first diplomatic negotiations with an alien civilization. The Araxians had insisted that the crew of the Mariner's Hope be present for all discussions, recognizing them as the humans who had earned their trust. As night fell on that historic day, Elena stepped away from the diplomatic chaos for a moment of quiet on the deck. She gazed up at the stars, now knowing with certainty that they weren't alone in the universe. Whatever happened next, there was no going back to the way things were before. "Ready for round 3 tomorrow, Captain?" Zoe asked, joining her at the railing. Elena nodded, watching the lights of the stellar Voyager reflect on the water's surface. As ready as anyone can be when they're making history by accident. They stood in companionable silence, contemplating how their lives had changed in just a few days. They had set out to catch fish and save their livelihoods. Instead, they had rescued beings from another world and changed the course of human civilization forever. "You know," Zoe said thoughtfully, "whatever happens with all this, I don't think we need to worry about the Mariner's Hope anymore." Elena chuckled. The truth in that statement was undeniable. Their financial troubles seemed trivial now, in the shadow of first contact. Their names would be recorded in history books for generations to come. But as Elena watched military personnel scurrying about and government officials speaking in urgent tones into secure phones, she wondered what price that fame might carry. The universe had just become infinitely larger and more complex, and they had pulled humanity into it, ready or not. Humanity's stand. 3 weeks after the Araxians' emergence, the crew of the Mariner's Hope found themselves living in a reality they could never have imagined. Their fishing vessel remained anchored beside the stellar Voyager, now at the center of a massive international security zone established in the Pacific. The United Nations had designated the area as neutral territory for ongoing diplomatic relations with the Araxians. Elena sat in what had once been the ship's small galley, now hastily converted into a meeting room where world leaders and alien representatives convened daily. Her crew had been appointed official human liaisons, a role none of them had been prepared for, but one they had adapted to with surprising effectiveness. "The Araxians' technology could advance our civilization by centuries," declared the American representative, a stern-faced woman in a crisp suit. "We should establish a formal exchange program immediately." "With appropriate safeguards," the Chinese official countered. "Such power must be distributed equally among nations." Commander Ilara listened patiently, her opalescent skin shifting through subtle color variations that Elena had learned indicated thoughtfulness. The Araxian leader had proven to be diplomatic yet cautious in these discussions, willing to share knowledge but wary of how it might be used. "The stellar Voyager is not a library to be plundered," Ilara explained gently. "Some technologies require cultural development alongside technical understanding. We must proceed carefully." Elena noticed the frustration on several officials' faces. Humans were not accustomed to being treated as the less advanced species in negotiations. The power dynamic was uncomfortable for many of the delegates, particularly those from nations accustomed to technological dominance. The meeting continued for hours, with discussions ranging from scientific exchange to cultural understanding. When it finally concluded, Alina stepped outside for a much-needed breath of fresh air. The ocean that had been her home for so many years now felt different somehow, smaller, yet more connected to the vast universe beyond. Daichi joined her, lighting his pipe, a habit he mostly abandoned until the stress of recent weeks had brought it back. "Never thought I'd miss just fishing for tuna," he remarked wryly. Alina smiled. "We've come a long way from worrying about empty nets," Captain Reyes called a familiar voice. They turned to see Commander Ilara approaching, her movements fluid and graceful despite the ship's gentle rocking. "May I speak with you privately?" Alina nodded, following the Araxian to a quieter section of the deck. In the weeks since their rescue, she had developed a genuine respect for Ilara, a leader forced to make difficult decisions for her people in an unfamiliar world. "We've detected something troubling," Ilara said without preamble, her voice low. "A transmission from deep space, directed toward your solar system." Alina felt a chill that had nothing to do with the evening breeze. "What kind of transmission?" "A signal from the Cravaxian Dominion." Ilara's galaxy-filled eyes darkened. "The enemies we were fleeing when we crashed on your world centuries ago. You think they detected your ship when it surfaced?" Ilara nodded gravely. "Our emergence would have created a distinct energy signature. The Cravaxians are relentless in their expansion, conquering or destroying any civilization they encounter. They view all other species as resources to be harvested or obstacles to be eliminated. The implications were clear and terrifying. You're saying Earth is now a target?" "I fear so, yes." Ilara's skin darkened to a deep blue, a color Alina had never seen on the Araxian before. "We have inadvertently brought our ancient war to your doorstep." Alina took a deep breath, processing this information. "How much time do we have?" The signal originated from approximately 12 light-years away. Their fastest ships could reach Earth within 2 months. "And what can we do to prepare?" "Earth doesn't have space combat capabilities." Ilara placed a 4-fingered hand on Alina's shoulder. "The Stellar Voyager is a battleship, damaged but still formidable. We will stand with you against this threat. However, I must be honest, even at full strength, we would be outnumbered. The Cravaxians rarely send less than a full battle group to secure new territories." Alina looked out at the ocean, then up at the stars that now held a new menace. "We need to tell the world leaders." The news of the approaching Cravaxian fleet sent shockwaves through the hastily established Interspecies Council. Military leaders from Earth's major powers immediately began discussing defense strategies, while politicians debated evacuation plans and resource allocation. The revelation that humanity faced an imminent extraterrestrial threat transformed the diplomatic atmosphere from cautious optimism to focused urgency. "Our most advanced weapons wouldn't even scratch their hull materials," the Russian admiral stated grimly after reviewing the Araxians' data on Cravaxian technology. "The Stellar Voyager's weapon systems are operational," Commander Ilara informed them. "But our numbers are limited. We have only 12 crew members conscious, and our ship cannot defeat a battle group alone. So we're defenseless," the German chancellor concluded, her face pale. Alina, who had been listening quietly, suddenly spoke up. "Maybe not entirely." All eyes turned to her, human and Araxian alike. "The Cravaxians have advanced technology, but they've never encountered humans before," she continued. "They won't be prepared for how we think, how we solve problems." "What are you suggesting, Captain Reyes?" asked the UN Secretary-General. "An asymmetric approach," she replied. "We can't match their firepower, but maybe we don't need to. When we rescued the Stellar Voyager, we used simple fishing techniques to achieve what seemed impossible." Zoe caught on immediately. "Like when we're fishing for marlin. We don't try to overpower them. We use their own strength and patterns against them." "Precisely." Alina nodded. "Commander Ilara, do the Cravaxians follow standard attack formations? Do they have predictable patterns?" Ilara's skin shifted to a thoughtful purple hue. Yes, they rely heavily on swarm tactics and overwhelming force. Their strategies are efficient but somewhat rigid. Then that's our advantage, Elena declared. They'll expect conventional resistance. We give them something completely different. For the next 6 weeks, an unprecedented collaboration took shape. The crew of the Mariner's Hope worked alongside Araxian engineers and Earth's military forces to develop what came to be known as the Fisherman's Defense. Using the Araxians' knowledge of Kryvaxian battle tactics and the fishermen's expertise in trapping elusive prey, they created a strategy that defied conventional military thinking. Earth's scientists and engineers worked around the clock to adapt the Araxians' technology for human use. Satellite networks were reconfigured to detect the specific energy signatures of Kryvaxian vessels. Weather control systems, originally designed to mitigate natural disasters, were repurposed as tactical environmental modification tools. The Stellar Voyager underwent repairs with the help of Earth's best engineers, its weapons systems enhanced and modified to work in concert with the unconventional defense plan. Araxian crew members trained human pilots to operate smaller defensive vessels using simulators. Through it all, Elena and her crew remained at the heart of the operation, their unique perspective bridging the gap between advanced alien technology and human ingenuity. Their experience in reading ocean currents translated surprisingly well to predicting the movement patterns of spacecraft. Their knowledge of how predators and prey interacted in marine ecosystems provided insights into battle strategy that even seasoned military commanders found valuable. 58 days after the warning, the first Kryvaxian ships appeared at the edge of the solar system. Just as Ilara had predicted, they arrived in force, a fleet of 27 warships advancing methodically toward Earth. "They're scanning our defenses," reported an Araxian sensor operator aboard the Stellar Voyager, analyzing our capabilities. Commander Ilara turned to Elena, who now stood on the bridge of the alien vessel alongside her crew. "They'll be expecting us to engage them beyond Mars orbit. That's standard defensive protocol." Elena nodded. "Then we do the opposite. Fall back to Earth orbit and activate the first phase." The Stellar Voyager retreated, appearing to abandon outer system defenses. The Kryvaxian fleet followed, accelerating toward Earth with growing confidence. They detected only minimal resistance, a few scattered human satellites and automated defense platforms that posed no real threat to their advanced technology. "They're entering the thermosphere," Marcus reported from his station. "Formation exactly as predicted." "Now," Elena commanded. Across Earth's surface, massive weather modification arrays activated simultaneously. The carefully orchestrated atmospheric disturbance created electromagnetic pulses that rippled through the upper atmosphere. Invisible to conventional sensors, but devastating to the specific frequency ranges used by Kryvaxian navigation systems. The enemy fleet faltered, their tight formation disrupting as ships struggled to compensate for the sudden navigational interference. "Just like when we use sound pulses to confuse schooling fish," Zoe remarked with grim satisfaction. "Second phase," Elena ordered. Hidden throughout Earth's orbit, thousands of microsatellites deployed reflective membranes, creating a chaotic pattern of false sensor readings. To the Kryvaxian targeting systems, it appeared as though Earth had suddenly multiplied into dozens of identical planets. "They're splitting their forces," Daichi observed as the enemy ships divided into smaller groups to investigate each false signature, breaking their defensive formation. This was the moment they had planned for. The Stellar Voyager, accompanied by Earth's hastily retrofitted defense vessels, launched a coordinated attack not against the Kryvaxian ships themselves, but at specific points in space around them. Like setting a net in the current, not where the fish are, but where they're going to be, Elena had explained during planning. The weapons fire created localized gravitational distortions, another adaptation of Araxian technology, that pulled the separated Kryvaxian vessels into predetermined kill zones. As the enemy ships struggled against the unexpected forces, the Stellar Voyager targeted the propulsion systems with surgical precision. The battle raged for hours, with the vastly outnumbered defenders using every trick and trap they had devised. Earth's atmosphere itself became a weapon, with carefully controlled bursts of the northern lights creating natural EMP effects that disrupted Kryvaxian communications. When it was over, 7 Kryvaxian ships had been destroyed, and the rest had retreated beyond the solar system, sending out emergency signals as they fled. The defense of Earth had succeeded beyond anyone's most optimistic projections. On the bridge of the stellar Voyager, human and Araxian crew members celebrated together, the boundaries between species forgotten in the shared triumph. Commander Ilara approached Alina, her skin glowing with a warm golden light that reflected her admiration. "Captain Rice, your fisherman's defense has accomplished what no conventional military force in the galaxy has managed. You've repelled a Kryvaxian invasion." Alina shook her head modestly. "We just did what we've always done, adapted to survive. It's what humans are good at." "It's more than that," Ilara insisted. "Your species thinks differently. Where others see limitations, you see possibilities. The Kryvaxians rely on technological superiority and overwhelming force. They had no defense against imagination and unconventional thinking." In the days that followed, Earth celebrated its first interstellar victory, while preparing for the possibility of future encounters. The Araxians, impressed by humanity's resourcefulness, formally proposed an alliance, offering to share more of their technology and knowledge in exchange for Earth's unique perspective on problem-solving. As leaders around the world debated the terms of this new galactic partnership, the crew of the Mariner's Hope found themselves in an unexpected position. Once struggling fishermen on the verge of bankruptcy, they were now celebrated heroes and key advisors in humanity's first steps into a wider cosmic community. One evening, as Earth and Araxian diplomats discussed the details of their new alliance, Alina escaped to the deck of the Mariner's Hope. Despite all that had happened, despite being offered luxurious accommodations elsewhere, she had insisted on keeping her small fishing vessel operational. It remained her home, her connection to the simple life she had led before everything changed. Daichi found her there, gazing at the stars with new understanding. "The Araxians have offered to upgrade our engines," he mentioned casually. "Could make this old girl the fastest fishing boat on Earth." Alina smiled. "Would take some of the challenge out of it, don't you think?" They shared a quiet laugh, two fishermen who had somehow helped save a planet. "What now, Captain?" Daichi asked after a comfortable silence. "Back to fishing." Alina considered the question, watching as the stellar Voyager hovered majestically above the ocean nearby, its lights reflecting on the water's surface. "I think the universe just got a lot bigger, Daichi. And there are some very interesting things swimming in it." She turned to her old friend with a spark of adventure in her eyes. "Why limit ourselves to just one ocean?"